What we're trying to do here is get some of them early morning topwater fish to bite. We're trying to do it with a good old buzz bait. There's a lot of ways you can catch them during the summertime, but early in the morning and again in the evening are two prime times for throwing your topwater lures, and the buzz bait has got to be one that's the most fun and probably the easiest for the majority of people to fish. We're just going to run some of these little feeding shelves and some of the banks. Some of them will have some scattered emergent grass, some laying down logs. See if we can't pick up a few fish. And it's just another pattern to keep in mind. I realize as the day gets up, the sun pops out, this probably won't work, and we'll have to go to a worm or a Carolina rig or a jig, crankbait, some of the traditional summertime patterns. But man, it can be fun when they're biting it. There's a nice one. Yeah, oh, he means business. Nice hit. You hit the way you're supposed. Oh, there's another one chasing him about the same size. Oh, I wished I had two hooks. There's another bass about the same size after that one. Now, see that fish? He just came up and slapped at that bait because look where he's hooked. He's hooked underneath the jaw. He didn't even have it in the mouth. Boy, you can't believe how valuable that trailer hook can be. There was another fish about that same size, maybe a little bit bigger, right behind him, and let's see if we can catch him.
The Bass Class with Denny Brauer is in session, and it's being brought to you by Evinrude Outboards, powered by fixed fuel injection, and by Daiwa Extreme Performance Tackle.
Topwater lures are at their best in low light conditions normally. What does that mean? You're going out there during the summertime. What's the best pattern? It may be getting out there on structure with a Carolina rig or a plastic worm, but you probably have a 1 hour window of opportunity early in the morning to take your topwater lures out there and catch a few fish that are up shallow or up on the surface before the bright sun drives them down. That same opportunity is going to exist right before dark. That's when you want to get them topwater baits back out again and experiment. That opportunity can exist all day long if you have cloud cover, or if you have a ripple on the water to break up light penetration. That's when it's at its best. Yes, in the spring I've had dynamite days fishing topwater with a bright sun out, bringing it by those shadows where they're laying and they'll just come up and kill them. There's always exceptions. But when you have a certain type of day, that's when you really ought to be thinking about a certain type of lure. Cloudy days, warm water, start thinking topwater lures. Topwater fishing is at its best in clear water. Buzz baits are usually at their best in dirty water. Of all the different topwater baits, I have more success with buzz baits in muddy water than I do any of the other ones. But these are like my spinner baits. I've always got a trailer hook hanging behind. I never fish them without a trailer hook.
There's one. Like that buzz bait, didn't you? Look at there. There's a good lesson. See that? Perfect example of why we put a trailer hook on behind them buzz baits. That's the only thing that fish got. If we wouldn't have had that trailer hook, that'd have just been one of them explosions and something to talk about. I always rig that buzz bait just like that. Let me pull the skirt back, you can see that better. Right there with that little bitty stinger hook and a little keeper to keep it on there. And you'd be surprised how many fish end up just getting that hook right there. You can still drag it over logs and it doesn't get hung up very bad at all, but that is a definite requirement for a buzz bait. we go. There's a good one. Come right out of that tree. Yeah, come here. Yeah. You were right where you were supposed to be. Trailer hook got you. Well, they're coming up and hitting it, but obviously they're not totally wanting it real bad, or they'd had it down their throat. Or that one would have. That other one just plain probably missed it. There's a real fine line in topwater fishing between it working and not working. And I think that's why you very seldom see any major tournaments won on it. It's hard to get a topwater pattern to hold up for the 3 or 4 day length of a tournament. There's short periods of time where it seems to work, but a cold front comes through, weather changes, you get calm, bright, sunny skies, whatever the case may be, the topwater pattern will disappear, and it can be fool's gold at times. But boy, when it's working, it's got to be the funnest way there is to catch bass. And there's so many different topwater baits. A lot of different choices, a lot of different ways you can go.
What are some of my favorite topwater baits? As I said, the big walking bait, your spook type bait, it's a great big fish bait. It's, to me, in topwater fishing, what the jig is to bottom fishing. When is it at its best? With all topwater baits, I feel that they become better players when the water temperature is 55 degrees and warmer. So that should be in your tackle box. If you're in an area where there's not a lot of big fish, go to a smaller size walking bait. They make these in different sizes. Go to one of the smaller versions, just like you're downsizing the size of a jig. Downsize the size of your topwater bait. Your little prop baits. Your little prop baits are great, subtle topwater baits. Post-spawn, summertime lure, little bitty tail spinner on it, working little rips. Let it sit. Usually I'm giving it a 2-rip count and stopping the lure. 2 rips and stopping. That's a numbers bait. If you're on a lake where you're trying to catch a limit of fish, you're probably going to get a lot more strikes on that than you would the big walking bait. They may not be as large, but it's a great way to attract attention, especially in warmer water temperatures. Some of the more popular lures the last few years that have received a lot of publicity have been your poppers. Some of these baits were discontinued over the years, but they've become very popular, and they're great at catching numbers of fish again. I like to skip these lures. I work my poppers and chuggers very, very fast, just kind of working them across, then stop them, work them and stop them. And what I'm trying to get them to do is make that same sound we were talking about when we were skipping jigs underneath boat docks, where it acts like a minnow that's trying to escape from a bait fish. I'm trying to make those chuggers spit that water forward and actually act like they're escaping. And then I'll stop them. Then I'll skip them again and stop them.
There, he got it. Yeah, he got it that time. You didn't like that, did you? Where are you going? Where are you going? Yeah, that kind of explains why they didn't want that buzzbait anymore. They wanted something a little slower. Just a little bit slower. Come here. Don't you get them hooks in me. No. Don't you do it. There. We got you. I don't know if that was the same fish or not. I had one hooked on the cast before, right in that same identical place. This may be a different one. I'll take him. Just throwing a little popping bait on 12-pound test line to give those fish a little bit of a different look. Slow it down more. Last couple strikes have been just kind of sluggish, so that kind of told me that they may not want that fast-moving buzzbait anymore. There's one. Now you hit like a true buzzbait fish, little guy. Yeah, you wanted it. You wanted to kill it. Don't get that trailer hook in me. You hit it hard, real hard. Something else I think we all need to pay attention to is the actual strike itself. If they're exploding on it and really hitting it, it's a good indication that you're doing the right thing. You're on the right pattern. You got the right lure. But if they're just kind of sucking it in and slapping at it, there may be a better way of catching them. You might need to go to a spinner bait, crankbait. So I do pay a lot of attention on how aggressive those fish are. Even though I may only get one bite in an area, just the fact that it was a savage bite will keep me on that pattern until maybe I find the concentrations of fish. And once in a while, we're just not catching them because we're not around them. You got to get in that right place. This particular buzzbait here is probably my favorite size, favorite color. Everything about it is my favorite, and I probably throw it 50% of the time, and the other 50% of the time I mix up with different colors and different sizes. But this is a 1/4 ounce Strike King Pro Buzz. It's got a flat head on it, which I think is very important. It helps it plane easier. You can reel it slower and keep it on plane, which is very, very important. It doesn't work you to death. One thing about buzz baits that I do think is tremendously important is to always use a trailer hook. And I don't know if you can see this very good, but I've got a little trailer hook on behind, not a great big one, just a small trailer hook, and I like it floating free. I've seen people where they put them on to where they stick straight out behind, and I don't like that. I like to put the trailer hook on where it's flexible, can move around, and then put one of these little plastic keepers on over it. You'd be amazed, as you've seen some of the fish that we've caught today, if it hadn't been for the trailer hook, we would not have caught those fish. So 100% of the time, behind my buzzbait, I've got that little bitty trailer hook. As I say, that's my #1 choice, and that's usually a clear watercolor. If I'm into an area where there's a lot of big fish and I'm strictly fishing for big fish, I upgrade in the size of the buzzbait, and I'll go to this 1/2 ounce size, 3/8 or 1/2 ounce, a lot bigger blade. Squeaks a little louder, disturbs a little more water. Fall period of the year, Kentucky spotted bass, or rainy, cloudy days, those dark, dark days, I like a little darker buzzbait, and I'll go to this one that has got a kind of a old blackish gold type of tint to it, and it's got the black bottom, and that bottom is really the profile the fish is seen. Muddy water, I go to the chartreuse. I also go to the chartreuse color if I'm in a lake that's got the smallmouth bass. They hate chartreuse, and they really hate chartreuse blades, and you can get a lot of dandy strikes with that particular color. If your fishing gets super tough, and we all experience that, but you still feel that the buzzbait bite is right, or if you're on a lake where the fish are running real small, go to a little 1/8 ounce buzzbait. It barely makes just a little ripple across the water, and that subtle presentation will probably catch you some of those fish. The only thing about it, when you downsize the size of your bait, you probably need a downsized line. When I go to this little 1/8 ounce bait, I'll go to 12, 15-pound test. When I'm fishing the bigger baits, I usually stick with the 20-pound test. It just gives me a greater advantage. Noise. Noise is tremendously important with buzz baits. You can get a buzz bait that's got a little piece of metal where you got two pieces actually hitting against each other, and that can agitate them. Or you can take and bend your blade down so that when your blade rotates, it hits against the lead head. Just do a little fine tuning that way. That knocking noise can agitate some fish into striking. A little trick I like to do is take this rivet on the back end of the buzzbait and just take my needle nose pliers and bend it and rough it up a little bit so that it creates more of a squeaking sound. And that's pretty much it for my buzzbaits. They're a killer bait. Let me get you down here and show you a few different retrieves, how I actually fish it, and it might get you thinking a little bit more about how to fish them under different situations. One of the most basic retrieves with a buzz bait is just throwing it out there and reeling it in. As soon as it hits the water, engage that reel so that you get it coming. Keep your rod tip low. I like to hold my rod kind of just like this with my power side so I can set the hook. Don't point the rod straight at your bait. If you're pointing it straight at your bait, you're going to miss a lot of fish. And don't have it straight out to the side. Just a happy compromise. The key is as soon as it hits the water, get that beta coming. And this is the standard retrieve. This is the retrieve most people use, and this is the retrieve that does work the majority of the time. What you want to do is figure out the speed of the retrieve. There's days where they want it barely moving on the surface where you're barely moving that reel handle. Just like that, plop, 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 plop. This is the hardest retrieve for people. People get in too big a hurry with this bait. But this is the type of retrieve that'll catch big fish in the colder water with the buzz bait. The other retrieve that works real well is a high-speed retrieve, where you're really moving that bait across the top of the water. This will trigger some tremendous explosions on reflex strikes. And what really helps this retrieve is your high-speed reels. This is that Daiwa TDX with a 6.3 to 1 gear retrieve ratio, and this makes buzz bait at high speed easy. Okay, another retrieve is what I kind of call the chase and shad retrieve, where you just give it a little either change of the reel or change of the rod. You can do it either way. Makes it spit water. If you bring it by a stump, and right when you get next to that stump, give it one of them quick little jerks, they can't stand that. Make it do something erratic. That's what triggers a response from a lot of fish. Almost makes it look injured. And those are my basic retrieves with the buzz bait. That's as tough as it is. As I say, a youngster can fish this bait. Doesn't make any difference. It's not hard to figure out when you're getting a strike, obviously, because you're going to see that explosion. But if you want to take it to the next level, do different things with a buzz bait. Experiment with your retrieves. Experiment with your sound. Experiment with your color. You're going to have some awesome, awesome days with this bait, folks. Right here. Here's definitely right here. Here's the deal. If you can get your lure in the tree and shake the tree and just keep shaking it, what happens is sooner or later you might catch a squirrel. That's the whole key, is shaking that branch. If you just let it sit there, you're not going to attract many squirrels. But you get it shaking back and forth. I've seen them squirrels come from a block to get a buzz bait. Whoa, that wasn't no little dog there. Oh, I saw him. There, he got it. Oh, and he come off. Oh, what a deal. Just barely had the trailer hook. What a fish. Oh, that was neat. You could see him just stalking it underneath the water. That was awesome. The only bad thing is he come on. There's one. Yeah, right by that tree. He's not big, but he thinks he is. Yeah. All right. He's not little either. It's a nice fish. Yeah. That is a nice fish, folks. What a nice buzz bait bite. Oh, and he is hooked good. That fish has got both the trailer hook and the main hook. Whew. I'll take you one like that any day, any tournament, any time. What a wonderful, wonderful bite. This bass fishing is fun. I love my job. I've got to have the best job in the world. A lot of people go out fishing just for entertainment. I go out fishing for entertainment. I go out fishing to make my living in a tournament. I go out fishing so that we can do a TV show to help teach you folks how to catch a few more fish. I go fishing for a lot of reasons. And you know, they're all fun. See, when you throw that bait underhanded like that, how you can get it underneath them